All right, good enough. Let's get started. I know I probably stand between a number of people and dinner, so I appreciate you guys sticking it out through the end of the day. We're going to talk tonight about digital transformation, specifically my experiences working with financial services institutions in powering their own digital transformations, kind of what's happening in that industry. Talk about digital transformation as a whole. And the big thing I want to leave you guys with is I have some lessons that I've learned over the years working with digital transformation in financial services that can probably help you with your own digital transformation projects. So as I said, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but it is absolutely accurate. I am not going to talk about blockchain. I'm not going to talk about side chains. I'm not going to talk about cryptocurrencies. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm going to talk about digital transformation. And before I launch into that, really quickly, who am I? My name is Chris Harrold. I'm the Director of Developer Relations for a company called Avoca. They make financial services software specifically for digital customer onboarding, which is a really tiny niche and a really big market. And I've been a digital transformation practitioner for decades now. I spent 25 years in IT overall. Developer, a maker, I'm a writer, outdoorsman when I'm not in front of a computer, which is increasingly rare these days. So I've been around this block a couple of times, and I hopefully want to share those lessons with you. So I'd like to start out with just a brief explanation. What is digital transformation? There's a Webster's dictionary definition that says that digital transformation is the integration of digital tech within all areas of a business, right? So not just technology for technology's sake, but all areas of business that changes the way that you deliver value to your customers. It's also a cultural change that requires organizations to continuously challenge the status quo, experiment, and get comfortable with failure, right? That's the textbook definition. I have another definition for it. I'm sure everybody recognizes this picture almost immediately, right? Anybody not know what this is? Okay, I'm gonna explain it anyway, so it's cool. This is just one picture of hundreds of the same theme about David and Goliath. We use this description for everything under the sun about David and Goliath, about the underdog rising up and beating down the mighty warrior. Here's the thing about digital transformation. David wasn't the underdog in this fight. Goliath was. That's digital transformation, right? David was using the most advanced ranged weapon for that period in history. He was lethal up to half a mile away, right? He was good with a sling. And we always see the picture drawn like this, right? Where David and Goliath are like this far apart, right? Goliath was dead before he saw the rock leave David's sling, right? That's how digital transformation works, because by the time you know it's happening to you and you're being disrupted, you're already dead. David wasn't the underdog here, Goliath is. And when you're Goliath, which I tell my customers all the time, which every bank in existence is Goliath, right? Everybody's David and everybody has a slingshot. And by the time you know you're being disrupted, it's already too late, right? So I want you to think about that as we go through the rest of this, that's really the message of David and Goliath when you talk about digital transformation. So why is digital transformation so hot right now? Why it's so hot right now, right? I have two theories about this, and I think they're in equal parts true. One is I like to say the promise equals the progress, right? We've said for years that we need to be a paperless company or an all-digital company, right? That was going around in the early 2000s, right? You weren't going to print anything ever again because everything was going to be electronic. That was like a digital move, right? Well, turns out we weren't really quite ready for that because you still need to physically sign things and yeah. So when I think about this, we've gone through this a bunch before. Does anybody know who these guys are? Anybody ever seen this picture before? Probably seen it somewhere, just don't realize it. So these dudes invented a piece of software called VisiCalc. That was the first spreadsheet software. This is DX 1.0. This is moving away from writing things with pen and paper to putting it in a computer. The problem with these guys is they were lousy at sales. So the guys down the street at Microsoft, right, won that fight, and that's why we all use Excel and not VisiCalc. Basically the same software, we don't use the old one anymore. So that was our 1.0 motion. 2.0 and 3.0 were really around the internet itself, really around connectivity, being able to exchange information easily, quickly, well, okay, maybe not so quickly, but quicker. And then 3.0, anybody know who the dog is? You've seen him. Somebody's seen him, right? Please somebody raise a hand just so I know somebody's seen him. Yeah, okay, good. Right, he was the pets.com guy. He is the poster child of the .com boom and bust in 2000. Right, if you build it, they will come. Everything on the internet. Nobody has to go to a store anymore. Oh, right, most people in the world don't have internet connectivity at that particular point in time, so that doesn't work. But now when we get to DX 4.0, cloud, analytics, machine learning, AI, IoT, all the things that are happening, all the tools, all the resources that we have now, right? Those are really powering a real move to be able to drive actual digital business and actual digital process and actually do things, because the promise of that digital world, the progress of technology is actually caught up with it now in a lot of ways. But really, if you want to know why, this is why. Right? It's because we took all of that, miniaturized it, and shoved it in our pockets. Without smartphones, none of this happens. Right? The digital world is predicated on portability and access. And having that in our pocket, I can't even count how many times I've somebody's been like, what's the population of New Zealand? If only there was a way I could access all the information in the world right now and find that out. Oh yeah, right, I can just pull my phone out and say, hey Siri, what's the population of New Zealand, right? This is 5.0 DX. This is where we are today. This is only going to continue. And when we think about digital transformation, I think it's really important that we recognize that, I mean, this has been around forever. Everyone's seen this model somewhere, right? People, process, technology. These are the three things that make up a digital transformation, right? The challenge for us is all we ever want to talk about is this, right? I go into a customer and they're like, what do I need to do my digital transformation? What do I buy? How do I buy digital transformation, right? If I do blockchain, am I digitally transferred? No, you're not, right? That's not how it works. Because you're ignoring people and process, and they're the things that everybody screws up in digital transformation, right? You can't have a digital business unless your people and your process are aligned to having a digital business. It doesn't work, right? And how do we know this doesn't work? Because there are literally hundreds and hundreds of studies. You'll get the slides, so don't bother writing the eye charts. I just put them in here so you could get to them easily later. But the stats on these reports, so the Harvard report, which is the first one, the digital divide, if you're a laggard in the digital evolution of organizations, you have 55% lower net income than your competitor in the same industry. Forbes, second one, only about 1 in 8 actually get digital transformation right in any way, shape, or form. The report's a little nebulous. I like the McKinsey report, which is the bottom one, a little better, which looks at a bunch of dynamics and different metrics for digital transformation success. And their number was 5%. So only 5% of digital transformations completely succeed, meet all their objectives, measurable, they come out ahead. KPMG says that less than 50% of its respondents even understand why the hell they would do it in the first place. They don't even see any value. And of those who saw value, so the other 50%, only 17% even think they can pull it off, right? I mean, this is a staggeringly low number of people who think that digital transformation can even happen. And the thing about it is, the reason DX fails, first and foremost, is because you cannot fix a process problem with technology. It does not work. I say this probably, I literally say at least once a day, but probably more like 3 or 4 times a day, because you cannot use technology to fix broken processes. If people are unwilling to adapt, if the process doesn't support a digital outcome, never gonna happen. You're broken before you even start. And there's no technology that fixes that, right? So, why bother, right? Why are we here? That was a great talk. Just totally ran on everybody's parade, super duper. No, it's okay. And the reason I know it's okay is because I work in financial services, and I use the phrase, here there be monsters. Finserv, right? They showed up late. Like, honestly, like they were super slow to pick up digital transformation. Big banks and stuff like that, like they were not, like I don't need a computer to lend money. Well, I mean, now you do, right? Because everything's electronic. But like in other industries like oil and gas, I literally had a CEO of an oil and gas company tell me once, I don't need a computer to drill for oil. And he's right, you don't. You run a drill and stick it in the ground and hope there's oil. You need a computer to figure out where the oil is and all the other things that you do and all your accounting work and everything else, but yeah, you can drill oil without it. You don't need a computer to be a bank teller. They used to write that stuff down, right? So I mean, kinda, yeah, but the first mention of digital transformation, that this is the Google search trends, you kind of see it kick off back, it's actually off the chart a little bit, but like 2008, 2009, 2010, like people start seriously searching for it, right? And then the economy was kind of in the hole, so nobody did anything, right? So people were just kind of interested, but didn't do it. And then, 2000, is that 13? Yeah, so 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, right? Boom, digital transformation is a thing again, right? It's taking off, people are interested in it, people are looking for it. Well, so around probably back here in 2013, 2012 was when financial services actually started to pay attention to it. They didn't do anything yet, but they started to pay attention. And what happened was, by 2016, they're kind of getting their act together. So my company, Avoca, does this digital sales readiness report, which is kind of an interesting thing. It doesn't actually report on their total digital transformation. It reports on the result. So can you digitally interact with a bank in a convenient, complete, easy way? Is it digitally approachable? Have they digitized a lot of their products and processes, right? What that shows you is behind the scenes, they had to do a bunch of work to make all that possible, right? Because you can't do that unless you've really sorted out your processes under the hood. And in 2016, right, we do like the Magic Quadrant thing like Gartner, right? But KeyBank was the only one who even came close, right? They were way ahead, actually, of most of the banks that we looked at, which was interesting, not particularly indicative, just interesting. But what a difference a couple of years makes, because by 2018, this is the last year of the survey, except for BBVA Bancomer, who for whatever reason just likes to hang out in the lower left, everybody else got their act together in a hurry. But what this tells us is not that they got their act together in 2 years, from 2016 to 2018, right? It's that back in 2013 and 2014, they started to put a digital strategy together, and this is the end result of that execution.
Can I ask real quick?
Absolutely.
What's the difference between the blue and the red dots?
Oh, the red dots, we have case studies for, I think. Yeah, it's just a marketing thing, so yeah. There's nothing enormously special about the red dots. So, yeah, so I mean, this is the end result, right? This didn't happen overnight. This didn't happen in 2 years. This is a process that's been happening for 4 or 5 years in some cases. And it's funny because I feel guilty about this a little bit. We've been telling these companies for 10 years. We've been telling every company for 10 years, you need to be a software company that also does insert your business here, right? You need to be a software company that's also a bank. You need to be a software company that's also a car dealership, or you need to be a software company that's also a farm implements manufacturer, right? Well, Finserv got the message. I did this last week or the week before. Developer.insertbanknamehere.com. You can go home and try it out as many times as you want. Everybody and their uncle has a developer portal. Everybody. I had this slide before with all the retail ones like Target and Best Buy and Walgreens and Kroger, right? Everybody has an API port. So software is eating every industry, which we already knew. But in Finserv in particular, that pace is accelerating way beyond other industries, right? Now, some people will say, oh, what about open banking? In fact, one of the guys I work with asked me that when we were running through this presentation last week. He said, do you think that's a result of open banking? And I said, yeah, I mean, that's a part of it, because open banking requires you to use common APIs to exchange information between banks, blah, 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 blah. But that's not what these are. These are for Joe Schmo off the street, like me, to write software that uses their information and data to do something. For example, on cities, I pick on them a lot because they're big about this, but I can use their identity management in my own applications. right? Now I have to pay for it. I pay them the API fee to use it, blah blah blah. But if I need identity management, I can use Citibank. That's pretty good. I got a big clientele list. I'm pretty sure I can probably, find who I'm looking for through their API management. But software is absolutely eating financial services, and there are no signs of this stopping. If you were paying attention really quickly when I skipped ahead, I ran this a couple of weeks ago too, and I went to a bunch of job sites, so jobs.whoever.com, right? And I just did a search with the keyword of developer. I didn't filter. Some of these might be business development people or whatever, right? So don't take it as literal, but it's pretty close. I looked through a bunch of them. There was a whole lot of Java this and React that and Angular this. I mean, Citibank is hiring 4,000 developers right now. You need a developer job? I recommend you check out their job website. It's straight up. And if you know Java, seriously, you should be all over all of this, right? There's no signs of this stopping. This momentum is going to continue hardcore for the next 5 to 10 years because the banks really got the message and really flipped over on it hard. And so they know they've got to go hard at becoming digital entities. And so what can we learn from them? All right, I got 6 lessons that I want you guys to take away with. Each one of these has a little story. We'll talk through them. Please feel free to ask questions. Thank you for raising your hand. I appreciate that. So let's talk about the first one. Ready, fire, aim. Everyone is guilty of this. Every single person in this room has done this. Everyone has had the greatest idea in the history of ever, run out and registered a domain name, and then realize there are 20 people doing the same thing, right? Or, oh my God, that would be the greatest thing ever, I'm gonna do it, and then you do it and you're like, this was terrible, why am I here, right? Like that happens to us all the time in any example. And financial services is not a stranger to this, right? We work with a company called First Tech Credit Union. They're on the DSR if you want to see them. They did a case study with us. They've done a bunch of really good things. Their digital transformation lead, when he came in, actually had to back them all the way back out of everything they had done to that point because it was so messed up. Because they had ready, fired, aim. What this means is really, when you start this out, and anybody who was in Bill Schmarzo's talk this morning heard a little bit of this, and he and I have known each other for a long time and strongly agree on this. You got to set your business objectives first, right? So it goes into 3 categories. Your business objective is a measurable tactical thing. Right? Business goals are the big aspirational stuff. We want to be the greatest credit union ever. That's a business goal. That's FTCU's goal as a business, is to be the best credit union ever in the history of ever. But their business objective was to make people applying for new accounts have a better experience. That's a measurable thing. You can see that and interact with that. And they also know that they need to compete with much larger and more wealthy organizations, right? They're a credit union, they got to compete with Citibank because everybody's out there trying to get your money in their bank. That's how it works. So they said, all right, what's our business objective? Let's make this better. Well, then they did research. Before they wrote a single line of code, before they picked a platform, before they did anything, they went out and asked their customers. They asked 500 members what it was that they liked, that they didn't like, how did they, how was the process, what's the parts that we can do better, how long did it take? I mean, they a million metrics. I've seen their kind of their energy check sheet, and it's long. It's a couple pages of just literally like ask this question, record the answer, ask this question, record the answer. So they went through that research process and figured out how to get there. Then they built it, right? It was a combination of tools and platforms. They built some themselves, they bought some, they partnered with other people. Obviously, we were in that mix because we know about it. And they hit their metrics, right? They hit their business objective. And I got a bunch of them. I'm happy to share them, but I'm not like big on just throwing out random stats. Just suffice to say, things for their customers got a lot better and a lot easier when they were using the bank's website or app or interacting with the bank digitally, which is the whole point of the digital transformation. So, avoiding ready, aim, fire, this is what it is. Where are you going? How important is it actually to the business and to you? And then you can get started building. Everybody says, oh my gosh, let's do this, and then they pick a platform, and then they get here. My own company is guilty of this too. We got feedback that we needed some API access on our front end, so we built it. But then when we started asking customers, they were like, yeah, that's cool, but that's not really what we meant, right? Because we didn't ask enough questions. We didn't do enough research. It happens. It's okay. You can still come back from it, but you have to, as we always say, embrace that culture of failure and be willing to walk it back, find the right way forward. Number 2, build for the future, not the present. The old adage for as long as I've been in IT was, if you've got a project and you know how much it's going to cost, add 20%, right? Because you always pad, because you never know what's going to happen. And that's really, really true when you're talking about digital strategy, because you never know what's going to happen. And so to tell this story, I should tell it not with an example from a bank. I tell it from my hometown. I live in Denver, Colorado. I've lived there my whole life. I've seen the town grow from a one-horse town to a horse-and-a-half town. But for a long time, parts of Denver were the fastest growing counties in the United States for a decade almost. And in 1992, our Regional Transportation Authority published a report that basically said the main artery through the heart of Denver, which is Interstate 25, was full. 180,000 cars a day, we were at capacity. Can't handle any more. So we said, okay, we're going to widen the highway, we're going to add mass transit, we're going to do all the things that you do to improve that. This is a first day of meaningful construction. They took a bridge down right there. This is December 3rd, 2001. This is a Monday morning. This is really good traffic. I would drive in this. Like, this is nothing, right? And we consider that bad. Well, the project finished ahead of schedule. It was under budget, widely lauded as a huge success in the transportation industry. This is August of 2006. This was taken on a Saturday morning, so normally there's more traffic than that, even at the time. But you can see, right, this is actually literally the exact same spot looking the other direction. So that big building in the first picture is right here. So look in the other direction, widened it, put in the light rail, did all the things, right? The prediction at the time that they built this was that over the next 20 years, so from 2006 to 2026, the south part of Denver was going to add 150,000 jobs. In 2006, the county to the south of Denver, Douglas County, which is literally right to the south of Denver, grew 64%. It was the fastest growing county in the United States. And it remained that way for the next 5 years. And we smashed that 150,000 jobs amount in not 20, but 6. Denver adds 40,000 jobs a month right now. Right? We trashed this before we even got close. This is what it looks like today. Right? Same intersection, same place. This is a regular Monday morning. Right? And I have to slog through that all the way up to about that mountain to go to work every day. And our light rail blew away its projections 3 or 4 years ago for ridership. I love it. I love the light rail system. I would never say anything bad about it. It just can't handle the load. We just don't have enough of it. Right? We don't have a subway. We don't have the transit that Manhattan enjoys. But this is about building for the future. We never anticipated all that other stuff. We padded it by a little bit. We really should have probably doubled it or even doubled and a half. Right? When you think about the long term of your digital transformation projects, remember that whatever you put under the hood is probably going to be there for a long time. And in financial services, that's especially true because it's highly regulated, so you don't get to throw stuff away. So if you pick a platform today, you are stuck with it pretty much forever. So you've got to be ready to plan for the future that you don't see coming. Right? Number 3, build by partner. I always tell people this. We talked about this for a long time. Don't build, solve problems. That's all it boils down to. Amazon, Microsoft, IBM to a lesser extent, Oracle to a much lesser extent, right? They give you an infrastructure and cloud platform. Don't build a solve problem. Don't build your own stuff in-house. Why would you do that? Somebody else has it. Run it there. It's cheaper, right? We worked with Forrester. That's the link at the bottom if you want to see it. We did some research with them about build versus buy. 52% of them take longer to deliver when you build it. 45% are over budget. 64% of the people who answered the survey, which is about 2,500 people, said that the TCO, the cost of ownership, was higher than if they just bought the damn thing in the first place. So build versus buy has been around forever, and it's all about reduced risk. Business cat is never wrong, right? It's all about reduced risk. The more that you spread that risk around, the better, right? So always build, buy, partner. Don't do all of one or the other. Number 4, focus on differentiation. Your differentiation. We use this iceberg metaphor all the time. How you like if you ever gone to a tech talk and not seen an iceberg somewhere, right? Everybody uses it because we talk about all the stuff that nobody sees, whatever. But in digital transformation, the part that people see is the part that actually matters, right? That's the part that I interact with as a customer. And when I use this metaphor, what I say is it's not just your iceberg. Everyone has one. Why do I want to interact with yours versus the guy down the street? Because everybody's got an iceberg. They all look nice and fluffy and white. And if I'm hot, I'm going to go lay on one because it's cold, right? Like that's how it works. Focus on your differentiation. Spend the money on the things that matter the most to your customers and to your business outcome. Because people like to focus on the widgets and all the stuff that's hidden under here. Nobody cares, right? The part that makes money is up top. Yeah.
This whole topic you're talking about is the reasons why DX fails. And when I read this, I think it's just because I'm not getting confused. Now you're talking about these are the good things to do.
Yeah, these are yeah. So if you focus all of your energy on the stuff under the waterline, so what, right? If your customer still has a bad experience after you've digitally transformed, you haven't done anything.
So differentiation means what you can see.
Exactly. Yeah, differentiation is the part everybody sees and interacts with. Right, and the reason that I say that is because a lot of times people want to use the hottest, latest, and greatest under the hood, and do like, oh well, everybody's using React, so we're going to use whatever brand new framework was released last week. Nobody cares. They want a nice website to interact with. That's what they want, right? It doesn't matter if you're using the latest technology if your website is terrible. That's the lesson. I am a big fan of technical debt. I've written a couple of 3 or 4 now blogs about this. I've done a lot of research on technical debt. The lesson to take away is to ignore technical debt at your peril. And the reason this is a lesson from financial services is because they're really, really bad at managing technical debt. They're actually terrible at it. And no metaphor serves this better than all your eggs in one basket. We always talk about that. You got to diversify, right? When you talk a financial planner, you don't want everything in one stock portfolio or one bond portfolio. When you diversify, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. But the thing about that is it's a little bit of a fallacy, right? Because my organization is one basket, and every bit of technology I put in that is in one basket. Now, if the basket goes away, nobody cares because I'm out of a job. Like if the company goes bankrupt tomorrow, what do I care? I don't care what technology is in the basket anymore. It doesn't exist. The basket went away. But what does matter, what you will care about, is if the person putting eggs in that basket goes away, right? And the reason that I say financial services is the absolute object lesson for this is because they have one of the biggest eggs in existence, and it's in everybody's basket in financial services, and it's this thing called KICS. KICS is a financial services backend. So all the ACH clearinghouse stuff and all that kind of stuff. Now, there's evolutions happening to this, but I will tell you right now, just like I said, when you pick a technology, you're stuck with it forever. Yeah, KICS is not going away, and it's written in COBOL. Yeah, the whole thing. The whole thing is in COBOL.
You're talking about the pre-DB to IBM kicks?
Yeah.
CACS?
Yeah.
Oh, CS, yeah.
Yeah, and it's in COBOL.
Yeah.
The average age of a COBOL developer, according to CIO.com, anybody want to guess?
That's still in use?
That's a little high.
58.
58. Yeah, who said 58? Well done. It's 58 years old. COBOL developers. If anybody, and I swear I am dead serious about this, if anybody in this room wants to learn COBOL, we will start a consulting agency tomorrow. We will make millions of dollars because every bank is desperate for somebody to maintain this old, brittle, giant egg that they're stuck with.
There's a company called in Houston called Cowboy, something like that.
Yeah. But the average age of their developers is 58. They're not going to be around any longer. They want to retire. Diversification is the key to surviving digitally. You're going to put it all in your basket. That's not the point. The point is, where'd the egg come from, right? Back to build, buy, partner. The thing that I always tell people is, when you think about the build part of this equation too, you should absolutely build your own stuff. That's part of differentiation. That's the part people see. You want to build those experiences for your customers. That's great. But remember that the developer job market is supposed to grow by 300,000 jobs in 2 years. There's a real good chance the people that are building your code right now aren't going to work for you in 3 years. So remember that when you look at this equation, because if you have other sources of eggs, when your hen dies, aka your developer leaves you, you can still put eggs in your basket with the technology set that you need to, right? Technical debt doesn't go away. You can pay it down, you can reinvest it, you can pay it forward, but it doesn't go away, right? You just move it around from bucket to bucket. It's the original OG accounting magic on paper, right? You just shift it around. And last but not least.
So, real quick,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
advocating more than for partnering with IT and outsourcing companies then, because they've got that funnel of new developers coming in?
Yeah. It's not even that you have to outsource. That's a good, the question was, is it about outsourcing or partnering with IT companies and consultancies? Yeah, you need to do that too, probably. But it's more about making sure that whatever technologies you pick are looking to partner with you, right? A lot of people just sell your product and walk out the door, right? You want to make sure that whoever you're in bed with, whoever's putting eggs in your basket, right, is going to stick around and cares a little bit at least about what you do. Now, every vendor will tell you they do, and you're the most important customer. That happens. I've said it. And sometimes it's even true. But the reality is that my company in particular, but a lot of the companies I work for, we have a vested interest in you sticking around, right? That's the kind of partnership you want to look at. Now, when you think about this in the bigger market space, to directly answer your question, yeah, Amazon's going to keep attracting developers. Citibank's going to keep attracting developers. You know, those, when you look at the bigger ecosystem, look who's snapping up all the developers. Those are the people that are going to stick around because they're playing the digital game for the long term. It's not that you have to outsource all your IT. That's probably a bad idea because you lose all that in-house knowledge that you get to control and keep access to, right? That's part of being able to build things on your own.
The companies are doing it. I mean, Verizon just literally took their entire IT team, 2,700 people, and sold them to Infosys.
Yep.
Well, now all Infosys employees.
Yeah. But they still all work at Verizon and they didn't change jobs. I mean, I went through that when Lockheed outsourced their IT to Mainline. Same thing. Right? That's been happening
Same
forever.
desk, probably.
Yeah, and I literally overnight went from one desk to the other, which was the exact same desk with the exact same job title and everything. That's how it works. So, yeah, I'm not saying that people aren't going to outsource. I'm saying that what's happened, and you can look at all the research in the world that shows this, fully outsourcing versus partnerships always win. Yeah. So, last but not least, slowly catch your monkey. This phrase comes from colonial India, but it's actually not racist. I promise. There's no what it was the British soldiers who were occupying India during colonial period were a bunch of idiots, right? They really wanted to catch all the little capuchin monkeys that were running around. You know, the cute little ones about this big, but they're fast and they're jerks. Right? They bite and they scratch you and all that stuff. And they would run up and try and catch it. Like they would chase it around and be like, I'm going to catch a monkey. Yeah, no, you don't catch a monkey that way.
They're smarter than the Brits.
Yes. Yeah. So the locals, right, the Indians were like, no, dude, you guys are dumb. That's not how you do it. And they showed them how to make a trap where the monkey reached in and grabbed a piece of fruit. And then monkeys are super stubborn, right? So they have food in their hand. And the thing, you can't pull it out of the trap. So they didn't drop it. And so you just walk up and grab the monkey. Right? And so it was all about patience. That's where this phrase comes from. And so when I tell people this, and we use this all the time in conversation with folks that I've worked for, hey, how's it going? I'm like, slowly catch the monkey, right? We're always just working our way down this path. And the reason is it's not checkers, right? It's chess. But you're not just playing chess against one or two other people. You're playing chess against everybody in the entire world, all the time. Because if you go back to the beginning about what I said about digital transformation, that David wasn't the underdog in the whole David and Goliath story, right? Everyone you're playing chess with is David, and every one of them has a sling, right? And that slingshot is loaded and ready to go. Because there's always new and innovative ideas and processes and technology that come down the pipe that make things easier, faster, better, cheaper. So the closing lesson to take away is, remember that you have to play the long game. It's not about winning tomorrow, it's about winning. Winning comes if you play the long game right and you exercise the patience to actually execute digital transformations. Right? That's it. Questions?
I hear a lot about, in this moment, first mover advantage is greater than it's ever been. And the idea that watching and observing, sort of seeing other people's failures and learning from them is not a good strategy.
It's a dead art, right?
Because, well, you'll just, the market dominance will be established, and then you'll be a very, very distant third, fourth,
Right.
fifth place.
Yeah. So the question was, is the age-old time-honored strategy of watching and waiting for everybody else to screw up before you try something still a good strategy? I would fundamentally argue that there's a bunch of people out there that prove that, yeah, you can still do that. Case study in this is Microsoft, right? Microsoft is now, depending on who you look at, either number 1 or number 2 in cloud, right? They didn't get into cloud when Amazon did. They were telling people to keep buy your stuff on-prem. That was their whole message. Cloud is stupid and insecure and it's going to fail, so you should buy our stuff and put it in your data center, right? But they were also very smart, and they watched what Amazon was doing, and then when they saw that Amazon was getting it right, then they rapidly jumped on that and retooled. I think you're absolutely right that whole market initiative, the first person to market wins kind of concept, is very much in play. Like, the first people to show up with good technology win. Like, that's pretty well proven out. But I don't think that you can't catch up rapidly if you're willing to do it. And that's kind of the thing, is that Microsoft's transformation to number 1 or 2 in cloud, right, wasn't about the technology. They had that forever. Like, that wasn't the issue. It was about getting their own people to change the frame of reference and talk about that cloud motion versus everything in-house. And it was brutal, right? We went through this a number of times. They whacked their whole partner environment at one point in time. Like, that was a nasty upheaval for business partners for Microsoft. They changed kind of everything about how they did everything, and it really undercut a lot of people that they had decades-old relationships with. But they had to do it to survive, and they knew it. And so they took the knocks, turned the corner on it, and now look at where they are, right? I mean, if you ever have the chance to see Satya Nadella speak, the CEO of Microsoft, drop everything and go. He's a brilliant individual who really had the force of will to just buckle down, double down on that transformation to do it. And so, yeah, there's huge advantages to being first to show up with a good tech, but there's also a lot of advantages to seeing how everybody else does it too, and being able to rapidly adapt to that.
Where do you see the big fintech innovations coming from? Startups or big banks?
Both. It depends, right? It depends on the innovations. I mean, you know, the whole payment thing, right? Like, banks were super flat-footed on that, right? I mean, I worked for a little company called, oh god, I can't even think of the name, but it was a competitor to Check Free. So Microsoft and FTC built a competitor to Check Free, like, I don't know, 3 decades ago now almost. And I mean, everybody ended up shutting it down because then the banks were like, screw that, we're going to let you pay bills online, and then you don't need to do the checks, right? But, you know, every once in a while you have a moment like that where an external startup-y thing comes along and totally disrupts PayPal, Square, all those things. You can get all those services from most big banks now. Kind of back to what you were saying, like, yeah, first of all, PayPal controls that market. That's done. Square controls that market. That's done. However, you know, if you have a Citibank account, you can do person-to-person transfer. Key does person-to-person transfer, right? Everybody got on board with that. So what it meant was, well, now I don't have to have this app and this app and this app and this app to do all the things. I can just do it through the one
What are
control.
the startups doing differently since big banks are catching up?
You know what it is? It's this, actually. Banks are stuck. They're lugging this 300-pound COBOL leg everywhere they go, right? And banks are hyper-regulated, right? You want the best example of this that you can see that's in action right now today? Electric scooters, right? Electric scooters is the best example of innovation that's screwing everybody up. And the reason is not because scooters are a new thing or whatever. It's because the electric scooter companies came into a city, dropped off 1,000 scooters, and hightailed it the hell out before anybody could say anything. And they got us all stoked about them. I use them. They're awesome. Like, I love that. If I'm downtown, I'm just like, wee-hoo-hoo, right? Like, it was amazing. They got the public on their side before the government had a chance to react. The government has controls and restrictions and whatever. The scooter people were like, here's a scooter, knock yourselves out. They don't care what you do with it, right? Same with dockless bikes and the whole 9 yards. It's the same in the banking industry. The banks are stuck under their own regulations, whereas a PayPal or a Square, yeah, they have to process payments in a certain way, but all the front end stuff, they can do whatever they want, right? And then they'll worry about the regulations after the fact. And that's more what you see. I would argue that in that case, the banks are probably making bigger strides than we even give them credit for, because they're catching up with the 500-pound anchor around their necks, right? Okay.
So my question's a little bit lower level. So you showed a slide about those glaciers, right? Getting the UX right for the customer.
Mm-hmm.
So from your experience, just trying to phrase this right.
No, that's good.
What are the lessons learned from a customer journey perspective that you got that right?
So I think, and actually,
yeah,
it's interesting because this is what my company does really fundamentally at the lowest level is customer experiences, right? Digital onboarding is all about how long it takes to fill out the form, abandonment rates, where do people skip out, how much is too much information to collect versus not enough, the business rules, all that kind of stuff. The only way that you can do this well is by tracking, reporting, and iterating. It's the only way, right? Your first form will not be your best form. That's just how it is, right? So as I look at this, I think the way you know is you have to solicit the feedback and run your own metrics and your own reporting on that environment to see where that's happening, right? There's just no other way you're going to do it, right? And I think the cool thing about this particular moment in history as a technology based civilization, like, it's kind of funny, but people are like genuinely cool with you asking them how was your experience. Like, I'll take the time to fill out a survey. I used to never do that, right? Like 10 years ago, somebody was like, yeah, press 2 at the end of the call for me. I'm like, nope, right? But now I'm like, yeah, 30 seconds, why not, right? We're in the era of the Net Promoter Score, or in the, like, an NPS at the end of your application process or your form process or whatever you had them go through will tell you more in one question than almost anything else that you can take away from the reporting, right? If you did one thing, that's what I would do. Right. I got one here and I'll come back.
What are the risks as you see in financial services firms adopting to public cloud?
I mean, the biggest one, and I have this conversation with people at big firms and little firms all the time. Some are okay with it, some aren't. You know what? It's kind of a risk tolerance thing. Like, a lot of so I worked at EMC for a little while, spinning Rust at one point in time, and we always used to tell people, "Oh, cloud's bad. It's insecure. Oh, I don't put stuff there. Everything bad." We said that for like a decade. Yeah, people listened to that. It turns out, and so there's still a lot of that legacy mindset left over in a lot, especially the big high-reg financial institutions. They're not putting stuff in the public cloud. They might carve off a chunk and build their own private cloud and lock it into a VPN situation, whatever, and that's cool. Our technology is actually cloud-based, but we'll give it to you as a private cloud, right? If that's your preference. But I am seeing more and more that there's a level of friction developing. So the people at the technology level, the directors, the managers, they get it. Like, it's cheaper, it's faster, it's easier. I don't got to go physically rack servers. I don't, whatever it is, right? They get it. They get the whole cloud promise. They want the tools. They want the APIs. They want all the stuff, right? And then you get into the data scientists, and those guys are like, "What? You're not doing this in cloud? Like, where? This isn't 1993. Come on, right?" So they that happens, but it's the management, the regulation, the compliance department. Like, they're brutal. I mean, they just are. It's not a bad thing. Right, their job is to keep the bank from getting screwed, and they do a good job of it for the most part. But part of that is really, a lot of them tend to be really over-stringent with their reading of the regulations. So, yeah.
Earlier in the presentation, we talked about why digital transformations don't succeed.
Mm-hmm.
There's less to do with the technology, more to do with the people and the processes.
Yep.
Part of it failing. Why do you think those two aspects fail?
Everybody has a job, or is looking for a job, or has been in school, or has a family, right? How many people have to deal with somebody at work, or at school, or in your family that just doesn't get it, right? About whatever it is, right? Somebody in your family likes Trump. Somebody in your family doesn't like Trump if you happen to like Trump. I don't really care. But the point is that there are always people who are never going to change. The 58-year-old COBOL developer, he's not changing. He's good, right? That's really the thing that kills off digital transformation faster than anything. Is the people that have to undertake those processes are scared. Fear's the little mind killer. Fear's the little death. Always, right? People have spent careers building an empire within that organization, and they want to protect it. That's just how it is. Like that, we talked about it in sales. When I was in sales all the time, you can't fight political battles with price. It doesn't matter how cheap you are. If the CIO wants it, he's buying it. Like, that's just how it is, right? That happens in digital transformation all the time. I see it all the time. We used to joke about Bob. Bob's the guy, right? You get in the room, you're having the conversation, everybody gets it except Bob. Bob is a jerk, right? He's been there for 20 years. He doesn't want to change. He's 6 weeks away from his pension. He just shows up to annoy people. He doesn't even have to work anymore, right? There's that guy in every organization. And unfortunately, what happens 9 times out of 10 is somehow that guy ends up involved in the process for digital transformation. And, right, everything goes. The ones that I have seen be hyper successful, which is why they're rare, is just like Satya Nadella came in and basically said, look, I'm sorry, if you can't get with the program, there's the door. And it's brutal, it's a little heartless, but it's reality. One more.
Are you seeing right now in the organization a change in that mentality where they're starting to bring a lot of the CIOs that now are sort of taxed to undertake more of a transformational position than this sort of kind of carried along as it's been?
Yeah, the question, just for everybody who might not have heard it, are we seeing organizations bringing in somebody who's willing to take those risks, who's willing to kind of be the heavy when that transformation is needed? And yeah, in a lot of cases we are. Unfortunately, we're only seeing it in 5% of the cases because that's all the ones that get it right now.
Yeah.
But yes, that momentum is continuing. So, great. Thank you guys very much.